We need a motion, of course, to look at the minutes from March 25th. I need a motion on that, please. Motion by Betty, seconded by Danny. And if there's any corrections or changes that you people would like to have. Everybody looked over the minutes. I'll call the question, the adoption of our minutes from the 25th of March. All those signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Going into our regular informational items for reports, we have Brian. I had a little meeting with your old boss one day earlier in the week, and he was very complimentary of you. Yeah, he told me what a good businessman you were. Yeah, and I didn't realize that you had to be such a good businessman in that position, but he explained a lot of things to me. Just like you explained on our tour, which I thought was the best tour, one of the best tours I've ever had of a government body. So you go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it. In the minutes here, you'll notice a couple of things. One was our solar approval. The other was RNG. A lot of landfills have entered into RNG, and we're doing the same for methane gas. So I'm excited to get those projects off the ground. And on the agenda for your committee today, the last item is a grant agreement. And I just wanted to thank Amy for all her hard work on that. She's done a great job, and we really appreciate it. So thank you, and Amy in particular, for everything.
I'm glad we've got such good cooperation among our people here in the county. Any questions? All right, Brian, thank you. Our next item, we have our facilities master plan, and we will have that okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Calvin.
There's quite a bit going on, so feel free to stop and ask any questions as I go through. Out at the jail, we're still an ongoing process for the sink conversion. The roof replacement has been ongoing. It's complete, except minor details. The ring road tied in with the JTC parking lot. PO has been issued to start excavating, and materials have been ordered. The brick tuck pointing and repair is an ongoing. We're about 40% complete out there. Moving over to JDC with the roof replacement, we're about 75% complete. The parking lot repair, of course, the PO has been issued to start in conjunction with the ring road. Here at the courthouse, we're remodeling the auditor's old office for office services. The painting is complete, completed in-house. The the flooring is being replaced as we speak, and the electrical portion of it has been scheduled in for their work also. We did have a meeting with Brian in probation. He's wanting to utilize more space in his office. Met with Dewberry and waiting on their scope of work and services. Same with the Main Street steps. I utilized Midwest Engineering and also working with them on their scope of work. The snack bar area we'd like to revamp. I've met with Mid-Illinois companies. I'm also waiting for quotes for repair. The Plaza Fountain we have looked at. I've met with Bob Eunice and waiting on, we did have a conversation on that and waiting for more direction of avenues to continue down. And with the exterior of the courthouse, and that's tuck pointing, cleaning, sealing the windows, that scope of work, I'm waiting for services. I met with Midwest Engineering on that, so that'll be coming out. with the circuit clerk's office, order of protection, treasurers, family justice, and including with the highway, all those are still in progress.
Calvin, who did you say you met with for these Main Street steps?
The Main Street steps, I've met with Midwest Engineering.
Midwest Engineering?
Yes.
Okay. Did they say anything about that being a violation of our, I'm trying to think of the word that they use when they say something's in violation of.
For ADA?
Yeah.
No, we are in compliance. They did measure the ramp, the existing ramp, and that is within code.
See, I always thought maybe because we didn't have the railing up and so forth, we might be in violation.
Now, if there is another violation, they didn't say anything.
Okay.
And
Any
with-
questions for Calvin? No questions. Thanks, Calvin. And our next item under our informational items would be the capital projects. And of course, the funding sources for those and where we are. Are you going to handle that, Scott?
Sure thing, Mr. Chairman. So that's on pages 6 and 7 in the packet. This, if your members recall, was a new report last month. It's also in the Finance Committee's packet as well. What this does is it shows the projects that are in the planning phases and whether they're funded by Capital Projects Fund or the American Rescue Plan Act Fund, where we are in terms of pre-planning for those. I also want to note that one of the, well, actually I'll hold that note till we get to the next agenda item. Happy to answer any questions about the funding detail.
All right, we'll move on to that next item for our informational items. Scott?
So every quarter, we'll be providing every committee the full packet of updates on the strategic plan action items. There are 3 that report to this committee. The first is the value of infrastructure strategy. The second is the facilities master plan update. And the third is capital improvement funding strategy. You'll note that number 5, which is the first one on the page on number 9, we're scheduled to start that project in the 4th quarter of this year, so nothing to report. Facilities master plan, Calvin is the team leader, and they've finalized the request for proposals document so that that can go out on the street, and that'll be out on the street. It was either out on the street last week or early this week yet, so the hope that by your next committee meeting at the end of May, that we'll be able to bring forward a recommendation. That's the ideal timeline, to bring forward a recommendation on an architectural and engineering vendor to prepare the facilities master plan update. Just to remind everybody, the scope of work of that is going to be related to all of our buildings except the jail, because you've previously approved a jail-specific master plan late last year. And then also excluded is the new Health and Human Services building, because it's under construction and will be brand new. But all of our other facilities will be included in that planning process. And then last, third and final item for this group is this committee is led by CFO McCord, and that's how we're going to pay for capital improvements after we get past ARPA and after we get past the public facility sales tax, which gets turned off at the end of the decade. So that team has had some preliminary meetings and started to discuss what that long-term capital funding plan might look like. You'll note that recommendations would be expected later this year. So happy to answer any questions about those three items or any of the other items that report to any of the other committees.
Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott, can you talk a little bit about the facilities master plan and the current coroner's office?
Sure. Happy to. So the building that we have on a city block that's between Gift and Seneca in the East Bluff currently houses not just the coroner and the morgue, but also houses the Children's Advocacy Center division of the state's attorney's office, and has a gymnasium, because it formerly was a juvenile detention center, that's full of paper records that we have to maintain, most of them from either the county clerk or the state's attorney's office. The facilities master plan will, as part of the process, evaluate what the best long-term strategy for that building is. State's Attorney Hoos has talked about relocating the Children's Advocacy Center to a more desirable location. She's been actively fundraising that so that there wouldn't, fundraising and/or grant dollars, so there wouldn't have to be any taxpayer dollars tied with that relocation and any remodeling associated. And then as part of it, we also will be looking at what the long-term strategy is for records retention for paper documents that we're not able to destroy. And then as also part of that, as I said, what's the best long-term strategy for the building? Is it to maintain it, or is it to demolish it? If we demolish it, with what dollars? And then if we demolish it, what should we do with the entire city block, which the building and parking lot comprises about a third or thereabouts. The other 2/3 is turf grass we mow, and the neighborhood uses basically as a pocket park. So we want to be cognizant of all those factors as we go through that planning process. Obviously, too early to articulate any recommendations that would come out of that process because we obviously haven't started it yet.
Anyone else with questions? Thank you, Scott. Four resolutions, and we'll begin with our first one, which is an intergovernmental agreement, and we need a motion on this. Motion by Betty, seconded by Sharon. And we have Jeff.
This intergovernmental agreement is with Princeville Road District for the replacement of structure number 072-4312 on Princeville Cemetery Road. The existing bridge is a concrete superstructure supported by wood pilings, so basically telephone poles are what holds the bridge up. They were deteriorating over a long period of time and becoming hollow, and it was decided in November of 21 that the bridge needed to be closed because it could no longer carry the loads. IDOT has recently significantly increased the amount of township bridge program funds available to the county, and we were able to use some of those funds to start the engineering on this. So this is an intergovernmental agreement with the road district to start the engineering work. All told, we're looking at about $1.3 million for engineering and construction to replace the structure. 80% of that cost should be 80% of that should be township bridge program funds. So.
Questions? Mr. Dillon?
Jeff, it might have been in there, but I couldn't find it. Do we recall off the top of our head what traffic count on this bridge was?
I want to say it was around 120 cars a day.
So I know that the money's out there, but part of me is questioning after 2.5 years, patterns change. Like, is there even an actual need to reopen this bridge? I mean, that's a long time. It's not like it was out for 6 months like we did in Chillicothe that one time, found emergency funds. after almost 3 years, people's patterns change. Like, do we really need a $1.3 million bridge for 120 cars that our portion is 200,000? I'm just asking for actual recommendation. Like,
Sure.
it just doesn't make sense financially, or patterns change, and I'm not looking to add more bridges to our jurisdiction. If like we could, I know it's a township road bridge, but I can't imagine on their budget that that's something that's a big chunk for their budget probably.
So the township has been in contact with us for a very long time, wanting to get this reopened, get it replaced. We did look at some of the bridges with timber piles. We can go and replace the timber piles with steel. We can do that one at a time, and they will do that. We looked into that in 2020, but there's wood retaining walls all the way around the bridge. They're completely rotten also. So we did look at a lower cost, but that project was close to $400,000, and we just couldn't justify that cost then. I would like to state that Township Bridge Program funds have a 4-year, they can only be used on township bridges, and they expire after 4 years. So if we do not use 1 year's allotment, it will go back to the state, and they'll put it in what they call a lapse pool fund. So if we do not use these funds, they will go back to the state, and they can only be used for township bridge programs, township bridges. So there's no other, we can't use it for a county bridge, we can't use it for an overlay, only can be used on township bridges. So, and that's the reason it's been closed for so long is we were in the past getting $145,000 a year. That doesn't allow us to do anything. We were trying to save up 2, 3, 4 years worth and apply it to one bridge. Now we're getting almost $600,000 a year. So now we can go out, we can do these projects. And we actually have this and another project going right now, which is kind of unheard of, that we've had multiple township bridge programs under design and going. So that was the whole point of the township bridge program being increased, and so we could get some of these old township bridges reopened. We're fortunate in our county that most of our township bridges are open. We have a few that are closed or are defunct, but Fulton County has several closed. Stark County has a few that are closed. So this is a great use to get these bridges reopened, because at one time in the past they were open and they were useful for everybody. So we can only replace bridges if they have a sufficiency rating of 50 or under. We go through and we look at our township bridge program every year. We have to submit that to IDOT in September, and we look through. So we pull up every township bridge we have. What are the sufficiency ratings? What are the weight load postings? What's the detour length? We put all that together and decide which bridges are the best fit for it. And this right now is the best fit for this, and is at the top of the list for our township bridges that need to be worked on. So we're fortunate that we've been able to keep up on our stuff. And really, you hear across the country our bridges aren't the greatest in the country, but we're doing a pretty good job. Fortunately, that most of our bridges are pretty well ranked and don't have to be replaced right now. So I think this is a great use for this. If I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't ask the committee to look at it.
Anyone else with questions or comments? Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. In fact, before we knew the Township Bridge Program money was going to be increased, I applied for federal major bridge money, which is bridges that are over $1 million. I put that application in. And that's what we're using to build the Maxwell Road Bridge right now. But that money, if we were to receive it, would be 6 years from the application date before we could use it. They're that far out. So it takes like a year for them to review applications and decide. And if they are decided or approved, it's 5 years out before you can build it. So that's why when we got this opportunity with the extra money, we shifted gears and asked to do this. And the township's been, I talk to the road commissioner every 6 months. What can we do? What can we do? And he's talked to our legislators and looking for money also. So.
Jeff, I want to back you 100% on that, because we had some bridges in the past that people make a big connection here. It might not be a lot of people driving on them, but then they got to go maybe 8 miles out of their way and circle all the way around. So I support you guys, what you're doing.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, Call for the vote on this resolution. All those in favor of the adoption of this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to our next one. It has to do with the same structure, but a different aspect of it. And I'm looking for a motion by Matt, seconded by Terry.
So this is the engineer agreement for the Princeville Cemetery Bridge. We would like to utilize Terra Engineering, and their fee for the Phase 1 and Phase 2 preliminary engineering is $208,826. 80% of that cost will be paid for with Township Bridge Program funds. So the township and the township share will be $20,882, and that's the same amount for the county.
Jim? Oh, no comments, no questions. All right. I got to take the motion. I missed calling for a motion? Yeah, I thought I got a motion on it. I thought Matt and Terry made the motion and seconded. You fouled me up, Jim. I'll get back at you next meeting. Coin for the vote on this resolution then. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. And we'll move on to the third resolution, which has to do with an area that I am somewhat familiar with, but I did not know, of course, that it was not in the city. So we need a motion in regard to this strip, and the motion was by Sharon and a sec by Betty.
All right, so this is a jurisdictional transfer of Sterling Avenue from US 150 to Scenic Drive. That's the area. Scenic Drive is the intersection with Red Lobster, or you could also go into Northwoods Mall that way. It was recently discovered that this portion of Sterling Avenue had never been jurisdictionally transferred to the city of Peoria. From Farmington Road up to 150, all of those sections had been rebuilt and either transferred to West Peoria or the city of Peoria. For whatever reason, back in the past, this portion never got transferred to the city. So we're just trying to make sure that it's back into the city. The city's been maintaining it. Everybody always assumed it was the city. So this is just straightening up the paperwork. I did make an error on the agenda briefing, though. I got a little happy with typing, but our motor fuel tax allotment will not be reduced because ours is based off of license plates. I got a little ahead of myself on that one, so you can disregard that. Our MFT will not be reduced.
We will not lose that $3,200.
No.
Okay.
That was my mistake.
All right. This is 0.21 of a mile. That's how long of an area it is. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to the next resolution that we will be submitting to the board for approval or denial is our Dry Run Creek, which we have dealt with in the past over certain matters and so forth. Need a motion on this. Motion by Terry, seconded by Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is matters involving this project have been before the board in the past. Today we're looking at recommending approval of the low bid from Stark Excavation. So in 2019, there was some flooding along the Dry Run Creek. Specifically, the location is in West Peoria. Swords Avenue is a county road, and this is just right off the county road. Dry Run Creek empties into the Kickapoo Creek. And in 2019, there was some severe flooding in this area, and it did some erosion to properties that included PDC, which is now GFL, and Greater Peoria Sanitary District has some facilities out there. There's some grants available. There is one we applied for on behalf of those partners with the EPA, and it helps fix erosion at these types of locations. This is all on private property. This is not on county property. The county did apply for the grant since it must come to a governmental agency. So we have previously, the previous boards have allowed us to apply for this grant funds, and to upfront the funding and then be reimbursed from GFL, PDC, and the sanitary district. The grant pays for 60% of the cost, and the remaining 40% is split equally between the two financial stakeholders. It's taken a while to get all the design approvals. We had to go through EPA. We had to get some permits on this one, but we went to a letting, and the low bid was from Stark Excavation, $423,501.61. And that's to repair the erosion. There's some pictures in your packet that shows the more specific location and some of the damage in that area. And we're hoping to that you consider this for a project, this EPA project, to show we like to try to work with our neighbors in the county. So happy to try to answer any questions if there's any questions.
So whoever did that grant for us is going to save a lot of money, right?
Yes, since this work had to be done anyway, this saves a significant portion of cost for those two agencies.
Any questions for Amy? Okay. Calling for the vote on this resolution to be sent to the board. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Amy. I didn't thank you, Jeff, but thank you, Jeff, as well. The public comment. Anybody with any public comment? You got a question? Go ahead, Jim.
Amy, Jeff, so actually seeing that 1966 agreement, what's that, with the projects that we have in the pipeline that are going to come, what's that leave us with City of Peoria mileage left? Sorry, I mean, if you don't, without, I couldn't.
We're still around 13 miles within the city. The last one we did was Glen Avenue, and that was half a mile. So we're still 12 and a half, around 12 and a half miles that we still have within the city of Peoria.
Well, the one thing I just saw that was curious was section 6 was that they averaged a mile at 600,000, and that they were each going to put money aside each year to try to knock a mile off. But some of those roads were still in our jurisdiction after 60 years.
Yes. We've looked to update that agreement, and we haven't been successful when we last looked at that. So we're still working off that agreement from the 60s.
Just curious. Thank you.
Do you want me to ask for that public comment again? Okay. And we have miscellaneous. I'm going to begin. Some of you on this board right now and on this committee were not and may not be familiar with the fact that the county board years ago adopted a county road. And that means that we are supposed to keep that county road clean as possible. And the last time we had a work day for our county board members of this road, and incidentally, this road is in, I think it's still in Mr. Alcessor's district, isn't it? It's the Mossville Road. And I'll tell you how long it's been. Both Bob Bietto and Tommy O'Neill were on the board. So that gives you an idea. Some of you who did not serve with either one of these individuals, I'll tell you, they were just as active as anybody. They got down the ditch and cleaned it all. We took a Saturday. And of course, the person whose road that's in, he didn't even show up. But anyway, he had good excuse. You know, he was working in the field, and so forth. So that's why I thought about my uncles that were farmers, and I said, when did they probably not do as much? Probably in about June. June seemed to be, you know, a day that they could sit back and watch their corn and beans grow and all that, and really didn't have to do too much. You didn't have to take the corn out of the beans yet, things like that. And so I've got to set a date. Now, I'm looking at June for all of you to volunteer, possibly a Saturday. If you can't, I understand. I mean, we won't do anything. We won't dock your paycheck or anything like that. But I know we can't do it the first two Saturdays. The 1st and the 8th, those are out. So we'll do a little bit. We're going to have those last 3 Saturdays. One of those last 3 Saturdays, I'll set this in May at our committee meeting next month. So get ready to get your bib overalls on or whatever you wear when you go out and have to go to work and so forth, real work, and not just that, thinking and so forth. But anyway, be prepared. And I'll find a Saturday, either the 15th or 22nd or 29th, so you can start looking at what you might want to do on those days and be prepared to help us, okay? What? Oh, we just clean up the litter and things like that along Mossville Road. Like I said, those two guys, they got down in the ditches and they were really digging out stuff and so forth. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, I will definitely be there if my constituent that sits over there shows up, I'll be there to help him.
I don't know whose idea it was to adopt that particular road. Scott, I don't know whether you were in a position that you remember that or not.
I was the assistant administrator at the time, and I do not recall what the genesis of that conversation and that decision was. And Mr. Chairman, you can work with administration, and we can communicate out to the board for you, and once you figure out a day and all that, all the coordination that might be necessary, we'll be happy to work with you on that.
The county will provide like gloves and the sacks that we fill up and so forth. We won't be all day out there.
Yeah, as part of the Adopt a Highway program, Amy does supply some of those types of materials. Yes, and it's not the entire stretch of Mossville Road from Knoxville down to Route 29. It's just up on top from Knoxville and about a half mile towards the top of the bluff.
I think isn't Robinson Park on that road? We don't go that far. Didn't that just make your day? Okay, anybody else with something for the good and welfare of the committee? If not, this meeting is adjourned.